Thank you, Paula, and welcome everyone to this month's Connect with Remedy webinar. This is a special event on Remedy 9 Upgrade Best Practices. Myself, Mark Walters from Support, and Sankar from our engineering group will take us through this content today. During the live presentation, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A panel, and our support and engineering experts will answer your questions during the live event. At the end, we'll take Q&A from the Q&A panel of any unanswered questions. Today, what we're going to cover is an overview of the Amigo program, pre-installation, post-installation of the upgrade, some support information that will help you when you log cases and new enhancements, as well as some reference links that will help you with your upgrade planning and execution. The overview of the Amigo program. First, we need to understand what is the Amigo program. The Amigo program stands for Assisted Migration Offering, and the concept to this program is success through proper planning. So if you are able to review, understand all the documentation, the best practice aspects to an upgrade, this will help you have a successful upgrade and mitigate some of the problems that you may encounter. The Amigo program has two phases to it. There is a starter phase where you would log an issue with support with Amigo Starter in that issue, and that collateral or best practice documentation would be introduced to you by the support analyst that is handling the case. Also, prior to opening the issue, you could review this information and get any questions ready that you had, and the support analyst would be able to address those questions, maybe around aspects of in-place upgrade or an accelerated upgrade or anything that you may have based on upgrade-oriented questions. Once all the questions are answered, that starter phase is closed. And then that's where you would take that best practice information and you would start planning your documented upgrade plan. You'd work on creating that plan, ensuring that all your integrations, anything specific to your environment is contained within that plan. You would also do test and validation to ensure that your upgrade plan has all the necessary aspects contained to ensure that proper upgrade. At that point, once that documented upgrade plan is done, that's when the second phase of the Amigo would be created, a support ticket with Amigo review, and once that case is created, you would supply your upgrade plan, and the support analyst that received that case would review it with the team of Amigo experts from engineering and support and provide feedback. If there's any questions that you had during that phase as well, those questions would be answered to ensure you're set for your upgrade. After that phase is done, all questions are answered, that case would be closed. During the upgrade or the review phase, if there's any questions that you may have based on the product or any product questions, those would be opened as normal support issues for the product team where your question is. And then at that point, they would process it like a normal support call. At this point, we're going to talk about pre-installation, and Sankar from engineering will take us through that content.
Thank you, Greg. Hello everyone, I'm Sankar Ayinala from Customer Engineering team. In order to avoid any surprises in the project plan or schedule, you should first understand the major architectural changes. Understanding these changes not only help you in upgrade process, but also make it easy for future upgrades. For example, we introduced overlay concepts in 7604 that keeps customization safe during the upgrade and eliminate rework on overwritten workflow. Similarly, in 8.0, there is a change in asset self-join architecture. In 8.1, we introduced granular overlays that would help minimizing reconciliation efforts during the upgrade or patching. We also made some changes to FTS architecture to support high availability. If you are upgrading from 7603 or prior version of AR server, then you need to first upgrade AR system to 8.1, apply latest hotfixes or patches available. You need to use BPCU utility to create overlays, then restore origin objects to clean up the base objects. Upgrade ER system to 9.1, then convert overlays to granular overlays using Developer Studio 9.1 or higher version. Using migrator, compare overlays with base and delete identical overlays. Now you need to create snapshot using Developer Studio that will be used during three-way reconciliation after upgrading all modules. If you are upgrading from 8.0 or prior version, then you need to convert overlay objects to granular overlays after ER system is upgraded and before ITSM upgrade starts. You can use Developer Studio 8.1 or higher version for this activity. Once you convert overlays to granular overlays, you can use migrator to compare overlays with base to see if they are identical. You can delete those identical overlay objects. Now create snapshot using Developer Studio and then proceed to ITSM upgrade. In 8.0, we have changed the design of asset self-join forms. All the asset related attributes are moved to a new form called Aft Attributes. Then self-joins will now be pointed to Aft Attributes as part of secondary join form. For example, before 8.0, if you look at Aft computer system join form, it is a self-join of BMC code, BMC computer system, and BMC code, BMC computer system. But after 8.0 upgrade, it will be joined between BMC computer system and Aft attributes. If you add fields to the join form from secondary part of the join, then you would lose your changes or customizations. Hence, you need to fix them before starting ITSM upgrade. PreChecker will show you the report of such invalid field mappings in the join forms and gives you an opportunity to fix invalid mappings before starting ITSM upgrade. So here is a sample picture that denotes how Aft attributes from BMC base element form are repointed to Aft attribute. So you need to analyze the dependencies and repoint your integrations such as API integrations or DSO mappings or any kind of third-party integrations so that the workflow will be in sync with new design. 9.0 Developer Studio allows you to visualize the differences between overlay and base objects and compare with your old base objects. You have taken snapshot using Developer Studio prior to ITSM upgrade. After upgrading SRM, SLM, you need to capture snapshot to compare. You need to log into two servers at this time. The first one is upgraded server and second one could be out of the box matching your production version or your production equaling server. After snapshot compare is done, you will see a report of overlay objects to reconcile. Developer Studio 9.1 allows you to visualize the differences between overlay and base objects and compare with old base object. You have taken snapshot using Developer Studio prior to ITSM upgrade. After upgrading SRM, SLM, you need to capture the snapshot to compare. You need to log into two servers at this time. First one is upgraded server and second one could be out of the box matching your production version or your production equaling server. After snapshot compare is done, you will see a report of overlay objects to reconcile. This is a sample screenshot showing the objects to reconcile. This report shows the total number of objects to reconcile. For example, there are 83 forms to reconcile. And you see a little red color X mark. The X mark denotes that those objects were deleted during the upgrade. If base object is deleted during upgrade, it would automatically delete corresponding overlay object. In this case, you no need to do anything. You just need to think if you have any dependencies or integrations using those objects. And at the bottom of the screenshot, you see a drop-down, old definition source for reconciliation field. This will allow you to select the server you logged into either out of the box or your production or QA. You need to supply this information for comparison purpose. So when you double click on the object to reconcile from the previous screen, you will see 3 panes that shows overlay differences. The first pane is base object from your reference server. Second pane is new object after upgrade. The third pane is overlay object. You can analyze these changes and decide if you want to keep your change or merge with out-of-the-box changes. With version 7604 Service Pack 5 or 8.1 latest Service Pack or 9.1, you can now install more than one FTS server in server group. Each server acts as independent FTS server in the server group and provide service failover capability. You can refer to the documentation link to know more about how high availability for FTS works and steps to implement.
Okay, thank you. So before you run one of the installers to upgrade your system, there are a number of prerequisites that you need to make sure are met. These include things such as software dependencies and configuration settings within the installed applications. The online documentation has sections for each of the products that details these requirements, but there is also a utility available that you can run on your system to directly validate that these and a number of other settings are configured according to the best practices to help you ensure that your upgrade goes smoothly. That utility is called the PreChecker, and we're going to have a more detailed look at what it is, how and when you should use it, when you run it, what you'll see and what it will do, and most importantly, kind of the whole point, what you should do with the information it reports. Next please, Greg. The PreChecker is a standalone utility included as part of the AR Server installer download and is available with both a command line and a GUI interface. The command line version can be used with a configuration file, allowing it to be run as part of a script or on a headless system. And it will create the same output files as the GUI that we'll look at shortly. The utility comes pre-configured with a series of tests for each product that is part of the Remedy 9 release, and it will connect to your existing Remedy server and database to perform these tests. The tests vary by product and include some for software dependencies, such as ensuring that the correct version of Java is installed. For the installation environment, is there sufficient disk space available for the new products being installed, and for any processes that are run as part of the upgrade, such as the full text index conversion that is required to support the updated FTS engine. There are also checks for specific application settings. For example, that the necessary licenses and any dependent products are installed. An example here would be that the Atrium integrator is a new requirement for ITSM 9, so it's possible that your current system doesn't have that installed, and this will be highlighted if that's the case. There are also data volume checks for the total number of records in some key forms, such as FT pending. This is the queue of records to be indexed by the full text engine. Whilst a large number of records in these forms may not prevent an upgrade from being successful, they may slow it down and cause it to take longer than necessary. The utility can be found in the config checker directory from the server installer, and you'll need to have a Java home environment variable set before you run it, otherwise you'll get a warning and it won't launch. The utility will log into your server, so make sure that's up and running as well. Checks are included for multiple products, and whilst you can run them all at once, it's recommended that you perform the server and CMDB checks first, and then run the utility again before each product is upgraded. If you run them all together, you'll get a number of dependency warnings because, for example, the current ITSM version that you have will not be high enough to support, for example, SLM version 9. Run the utility directly on the server that is being upgraded, as it will try and read files from the current system installation directories, and it also needs to be able to perform tests of the environment on the system. If you have a server group, it's worth running the utility on each of the servers. There will be some duplication in the results, but you want to ensure that the software and environment dependency checks are run for each server. In the first screen, you select the checks to run and provide the details of your current environment. One thing to note is that as well as checks to be run before performing an upgrade, the utility can also be used at any time to verify the current configuration of a system and to highlight any settings which may not be set to what BMC consider to be best practices. Enter the login account details for your current Remedy server and database and the path to the AR server installation directory. Click on the Run button, and it should take from anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes for the checks to complete, depending on the packages you have selected. Once it's done, you'll be able to see a summary of the results within the utility, but it also creates an output file in HTML format, which is much easier to read. If you're using the 9.1 version of the utility, you can go directly to the report using the HTML button that's highlighted. Earlier versions require you to open the file manually, and that can be found in the results directory where the utility is run from. When you open the results output file, you'll see a summary of the checks run and their results, whether the check passed, raised a warning, or even an error. Click on the Errors and Warnings tab and you'll be able to see more details about the tests. Some of the warnings or errors you may be able to ignore. Here, for example, the free RAM check will often fail because the operating system is using free memory for caching, but will release it when it is required by an application. The next step is to fix any of the errors that have been highlighted. Help with the details of what a test does, what the expected results are, and some suggestions for corrective action can be seen by using the Click Here for Help link. The information is displayed from the BMC website, which allows it to be updated after the release of the product. As you can see here, a defect was found when this test was used in a server group, and a note that this can be ignored has been added. Links to the same sections of the website have been included in the references at the end of the presentation. Once you've addressed the errors, it's always a good idea to run the checker again and confirm that they have indeed been fixed and that there are no subsequent problems reported. If you do find an error you can't resolve or that you don't understand, please get in touch with support and remember to include the results file. Hopefully your upgrade has completed successfully, and now we'll look at the recommended next steps before you start using the system. As we're talking about software, it's hopefully no surprise to you that I'll say that after the initial relaunch of a product, BMC may release updates to address specific issues that come to light. We call these patches, and they're made available as updates on a product-by-product basis. The release notes pages for each product on the BMC website have details of any patches that are available. Again, links are included in the references. The patch documentation includes details of the fixes within the patch and instructions for its installation. We recommend that you review the fix details for those products you're installing to determine whether they're relevant for your system. Note that generally the patches require that the base product is already installed. They're not full installers that can be used as upgrades from earlier versions. Also, patches are cumulative. If more than one is available for a product, you only need to install the latest, as it includes all of the fixes from the earlier versions. One thing I would like to point out is that in the case of 9.0 and 9.0 Service Pack 1 releases of the AR server and mid-tier, BMC have made available a set of highly recommended patches that address some specific performance problems found at a number of customers post-release. These fixes are already included in the 9.1 release, and you can find full details of the fixes at that link there. If you're using Smart IT, you need to be using version 1.2 or higher, depending on your ITSM version. The current version of Smart IT is 1.4. Specifically, if you're using ITSM 9.0 or 9.0 Service Pack 1, you need to be using Smart IT 1.2 or higher, and if you're using ITSM 9.1, then you need to be on at least 1.3 Service Pack 1. Once you have reviewed and installed any relevant patches, it is then recommended that you validate the configuration of your system. This is a check to make sure that any specific settings you have for your environment are set as you expect and require. This would include the use of things like third-party or custom plugins, integrations, and perhaps any private queues or specific settings that they require. It's worth noting that one of the features of Remedy 9 is that the definitive source of configuration information that was previously held in the AR-conf plugin server and some of the other configuration files is now stored as data in a form on the server. This is the centralized configuration form. The same information is still maintained in the files on the server for backwards compatibility, but we recommend that changes are made via the form interface rather than directly in those files wherever possible. The feature continues to be developed with each release to include more and more of the server-side components. Also, don't forget to include testing of both existing and new functionality within the applications. Pay particular attention to your customizations and integrations and ensure that they all work as expected. Performance testing is also important. The core Remedy server is now Java-based, and although testing shows it performs as well or better in many cases than earlier versions, you should confirm this in your environment. If you do run into problems at any stage, for example with the PreChecker, an error that you can't resolve, during the upgrade itself or in your post-upgrade testing, please open a case with the BMC support team. There are a number of things that you can do to help support, understand and resolve your issue as quickly as possible. When you first submit a case, please try and remember to include as much detail as possible about the process you're performing and the environment where the problem is happening. This would include information such as the versions of the platform, database, and the current applications. If you're getting a specific error, screenshots or the full text of those error messages are very helpful. And if the server is already up and running, an export of the data from the centralized config form could also be helpful for support. There's a specific knowledge base article highlighted in that link there that details exactly how to pull all of that information out in an easy way. There is also a maintenance tool available for each product, and you will find this installed in the AR server or utilities directory under the product installation. This can be run to collect all the logs for the particular product or all registered BMC products on the system and package them into a single file to be sent to support. The idea is to try and reduce the number of times support will need to come back to you to ask for additional information. We can't guarantee that it won't be necessary, but having this information available when the case is submitted will help minimize the number of round trips. If you do encounter a problem during your post-upgrade testing, there are some new features in Remedy 9 which will help you collect logging for your investigation and possibly to send to BMC support. Firstly, we have the always-on logging. This is enabled by default and causes the server to reserve 5 megabytes of memory to continuously record SQL and API type logging. This information is stored in a memory buffer which can then be saved to a file under several different circumstances. Firstly, you can provide a list of one or more AR error numbers that may be being reported when the problem occurs, and the server will output the logs each time this happens. The logs will also be written in the event of a server crash. And finally, you can elect to output the buffer contents at any time by clicking a button. The feature is configured using the Always-On Logging tab of the Server Information Console. Here you can set the file name and view the contents, increase the buffer size, which may be necessary if your system is a very busy one. The server will also keep a number of backup files, which may be helpful if multiple errors are being encountered or if they're occurring close together. The second feature is also related to logging and allows you to filter the data the server collects based on the login name of a user, the type of client being used, and the RPC queue number that the client is connecting on. This can help reduce the volume of data being logged and allow you to focus on specific users or activities where appropriate. In all cases, more than one of each type of filter criteria can be specified, and the filters are additive. That is, if you specify both a user and a client, only activity by that user from that client will be logged. In the case of the user filter, it's worth noting that as plugins play an increasingly large part in the application functionality, these components often use the Remedy application service username for their actions. You may find it helpful to include this along with the names of specific users to make sure that you get a full picture of the activity that's taking place. The client type can be selected from the menu, or you can enter a client ID directly if you happen to know it, or perhaps if you've developed your own client and have set that property. You can see the client descriptions as reported in the API log. They're part of the description of after the API call type. Finally, if you're able to configure a client to use a private queue, you can filter on that to isolate just its actions. So an example here would be something like the email engine or the recon engine. You can configure those components to connect on a private queue. They will be the only clients using it, and only that activity will be captured. So we've covered a number of topics to help you with your 9.0 upgrade. And to summarize those, please make use of the Amigo program. We have people here available to help you. Send in your plans when you begin developing them. Ask your questions, and we will provide you with feedback. Use the online documentation, particularly the interactive deployment portal. That will step you through stage by stage exactly what needs to be done, and there's a lot of good descriptive information available to help you understand the process. Use the PreChecker. Use it often and use it on all of your systems. It doesn't cause any problems, and it gives you a snapshot to check, to make sure that everything is in the best possible condition before you begin the upgrade, and minimize the chance of running into any problems. In the same vein, check the release notes for the products and have a look at the patches that are available. I think we've certainly got patches for 9.0, patch 1 and patch 2 at the moment. I don't think that as yet there are any for 9.1, but please go and have a look during your upgrade testing, review the contents of the patch readmes and see which ones you think will be relevant for your environment. And finally, make sure you do plenty of testing to validate that all of the changes, that all of the upgrades have succeeded and that all of the functionality is performing as expected. There are a number of references here that are mentioned throughout the presentation. In particular, the knowledge base article that is listed at the bottom will contain all of the above and anything else that we find useful going forward. It will be continually updated with links relevant to Remedy 9 upgrades, so it's worth adding to your bookmarks to be available when you start doing your planning or you're in progress. Thank you very much. I think we're ready for the Q&A.
Great. I do have several questions lined up here. The first one is regarding the Amigo program. Are there any additional costs associated with Amigo, or is it included with our support contract?
Yes, this is included with your support contract. It's available to any customer with a valid support contract, and there's no extra cost or procedure. It just requires either a support case to be opened as an Amigo starter for the starter phase, or one open for the Amigo review that will indicate it's a plan review. This program is not only available for the ITSM products, but across other BMC product lines as well.
Great. You actually just answered the other question, which was how is it possible to start the Amigo program? And that's via a starter email, right? A starter issue with support.
That is correct. So whenever you log a case and it has Amigo starter or Amigo review,
that will indicate to the support TSA assigned to it that it's either a starter issue or a review issue.
Great. This next question is looking for some confirmation. It says, we need to convert overlays to Granular because this reduces the number of fields to reconcile after the upgrade?
Yes. They need to convert overlays to Granular overlays right after ER system upgrade and before starting ITSM upgrade. So, for example, if they convert overlays to Granular overlays after the ITSM, SRM, SLM upgrade, the problem is they will see more number of objects to reconcile in three-way reconciliation report. So the best practice is you upgrade the ER system first to 8.1 or 9.1 or 9.0, whatever latest, and then you convert overlays to Granular overlays and then capture the snapshot, then start the upgrade. Once upgrade is done, capture the snapshot again for three-way recon.
Great, thank you. The next question is, can we migrate from version, and I'm assuming they mean upgrade, but they said, can we migrate from version 7604 SP5 to version 9.1 without using version 8.1?
Yes.
Thanks for that confirmation. The next one is, the customer performed a test upgrade to 9.1 and he noticed some of the AR.config parameters were missing. Is that an installer defect?
No, actually there is a architectural or config changes during the upgrade. So some of the things we moved to XML files, some are moved to some forms. So, installer delete those configuration entries from ER monitor or ER.cfg and it will be placed in respective new functional areas.
Great. I just have a few more questions lined up. So for those on the phone, if you have a question, please go to the Q&A section of the webinar and post your question. I will be giving a last call for questions in a few moments after I'm done with the questions I have. Okay, the next question is, if I already created overlays with BPCU in 7604, do I need to run BPCU again when upgrading to 9.1?
No, the answer is no. They should use BPCU only once in a lifetime to create overlays. So for example, if they think that their developers or someone did a mistake by modifying objects in base, what they can do is they can use BPCU to identify changes, but don't use BPCU to create overlays. That will mess up and it may create more and more overlays unnecessarily. So they can use BPCU in report mode to identify any changes in base and then analyze and use Developer Studio to create overlays. For example, someone in their company, some developer might have modified an active link in base, and what they have to do is they need to use BPCU, run the report and see if that is really changed, and then they can come back to Developer Studio, they can right click and create overlay. For example, they already have overlay, but still they made changes, then they have to manually propagate the changes from base to overlay before upgrade.
Great, thank you. The next question is, if I had already took care of the AST attributes when I upgraded to 8.1, do I need to worry about it when I upgrade to 9.1?
Answer is no. This is only one time. If you are upgrading from 7604 to 8.1, you need to take care, but if you are already on 8.0 or above, then you no need to worry about those changes.
Okay, great. I am down to my last question here. So again, this is going to be, if you have a question to ask, please go to the Q&A section and we'll get it answered or asked. The next question is, can we upgrade in place or are additional servers required during the upgrade process?
Sorry, can you repeat once again?
Yes. Can we upgrade in place or are additional servers required during the upgrade process?
Yes, they can upgrade, they can use in-place upgrade to upgrade their additional servers, or, they can set up new servers. Okay, I see a question in the chat. What is the average time for the upgrade process? So, the upgrade time taken depends upon various factors such as your operating system, size of the database, and other aspects. For example, if you have a smaller database, like maybe a 10 gig or 12 gig, it might be much faster than upgrading 1 terabyte of DB. The reason is, like, when we are importing a form, so it will go and masses the data. For example, if you are adding a new field and if you are populating a default value, so the database will go and add a column at the database level, and then it will auto-populate. So that would take some time. So it depends upon size of the database and also the performance of OS and ER server.
Great. I do have a question regarding the Amigo program. Is there a limit to the hours in the Amigo program?
Yeah, there really isn't any kind of cap or limit on it. It would be worked just like a normal support case, and so for us to provide the information and answer any questions that you have, we will do what's necessary for that. There isn't necessarily a time limit on providing that. Now, just to be clear of what this program is, it is a planning exercise. Once the information is provided, you're familiarized with it, the questions are answered, it is your responsibility to create that documented upgrade plan based on your environment, the integrations that you may have. And so that work is something that you would need to do. That isn't something that would be done by support. So just to be clear. And, beyond that, if there is additional assistance needed to bridge that gap, our professional services also offers solution planning workshops to help with some of the efforts for planning your upgrade, to create a upgrade plan, to identify the dependencies, and that is a professional services engagement that can do that level of work.
Great, thank you. The next question is regarding StFortification. It says, do we need to run StFortification again after upgrading from 8.1 to 9.1?
No, it is not required. It is only one time when they are upgrading from previous version to 8.1. But if they are upgrading to 9.1, it's not required.
Here's a question regarding server groups. Do I need to upgrade all servers in a server group at the same time prior to bringing the server group back online?
Answer is no. So the way you can do is, when you are doing in-place upgrade, you will shut down all your secondary servers. You will upgrade your primary server, which is admin server. So that will upgrade the file system and the database. So once that is upgraded, users can start using that. Then they can start with secondary server upgrade. So let's say if they have 5 servers, so they will upgrade server 1, which is their admin server. Once that upgrade is done, then users can start using the server 1. Then they can upgrade server 2. Once the server is upgraded, they can add it to the server group and also load balancer, and users can start using 2 servers. Then they can upgrade server 3, add it to the load balancer, users can use 3, and so on.
Here's another question regarding the Amigo program. What kind of SLAs/response times should we expect with the Amigo program?
So the Amigo program is not different than any other support case logged. And so based on how this Amigo case is submitted, it will be worked based on that priority. Now, since this is a planning exercise, there wouldn't be something that would be logged as a server down, for instance, or a sub 1. These would normally be worked as a sub 3 medium type of issue, as we orient you with the best practice documentation, answer any questions. That's how these are normally worked. Now, with the review phase, that's something that we request that the documented upgrade plan is provided 2 weeks prior to your planned upgrade, so we're able to properly review it, provide feedback, answer any questions. It's very challenging to get something on a Thursday before an upgrade that weekend and provide the correct feedback to you. So, and that is documented in the Amigo plan details and would be reviewed by the TSA taking you through that to make sure you're aware of those time frames.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. The next question is regarding three-way reconciliation. How long does it take to use three-way reconciliation to reconcile customizations?
Okay, so that depends upon number of overlays they have. So for example, they have 300 overlays, and out of these 300 overlays, during the upgrade, if you are changing only 100 objects in the base layer during upgrade, then they have to reconcile only 100. They no need to reconcile rest of the 200. So it depends upon the number of objects that are changed in base during the upgrade. And there is another question. So does the three-way reconciliation function come into play if you have upgrade in place? So this three-way reconciliation is a one-time process if you are upgrading, your development and QA with a copy of your production, and if there is no change in your production environment. So for example, if you take copy of your production, restore on your development, so what you do is you convert overlays to granular overlays and upgrade, then you do three-way reconciliation. After your testing, you will export all these overlays. So when you are upgrading your production, you no need to run through all these manual steps. You no need to convert overlays to granular overlays. You no need to do three-way reconciliation on your production. You can directly import your tested overlays from your QA environment or development environment or staging wherever you tested and ensure that they are fine.
Great, thank you. This next question is, what if I didn't convert my customizations made to the base form to an overlay? Let me repeat that. What if I didn't convert my customizations to the base to an overlay? Will it still be preserved after upgrading to 9.1?
No, anything changed in the base will be overwritten during the upgrade.
Thanks for that confirmation. Next question is regarding Atrium SSO. It says, I'm currently using Atrium SSO and I'm planning to upgrade to Remedy 9.1, but only Remedy SSO is supported, correct? So we would need to configure and use our SSO after we have upgraded, correct?
That is correct. RSSO is the supported single sign-on in Remedy 9.1.
Thank you. Can we upgrade server/CMDB Foundation to Remedy 9.1 and leave the apps at 8.102?
Sorry, Steve, can you repeat once again?
Yes, I can. Can we upgrade AR server/CMDB, and then in parentheses they say Foundation, to Remedy 9.1 and leave the apps at 8.102?
Yes, they can. So this is what most of the customers do their, in-place upgrade in phases. So, in one weekend, they will upgrade ER system, CMDB, and ATM integrator. And maybe in the next cycle, maybe a few weeks or few months later, they will upgrade apps, ITSM, SRM, SLM. Yes, it is. It is supported, but they need to look at the compatibility metrics, make sure that these components, works together. For example, if they are on 7604, they need to ensure that they have latest patch and also all the hot fixes are applied in order to support the cross version.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is, if a change is made to the ar.config file, would that change be ignored based on centralized config?
It depends upon the change. So, so for example, if you are, moving to some preferences, if it is a form based, even if you change in er.config file, it will not affect. So it will take from the centralized form wherever we made changes.
Okay, this next question is regarding the always-on logging GUI. It says the always-on logging GUI button may be okay for small installs, but we have 15 AR servers. This should be scriptable. Any comments towards that?
I think it depends. What do you mean by scriptable? The information that's used to configure the logging can all be done through the API. So if you have access to, for example, the driver command, you can use a script to call the driver to actually set the properties. And there's also a GSI call that you can use to trigger the dumping of the files. So it is possible to script it via the API.
Okay, since there are no further questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's special event webinar. Thank you for your attendance and participation. Today's webinar recording, along with its Q&A, will be posted to the BMC communities within 1 week from today.